Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo and welcome to day 354 of a year of change. Today I wanted to sort of get back into talking about exercise because it's been a long few days of us just sort of talking about food and especially bad food. It's a weird thing to sort of end on for our last couple of weeks. So I wanted to get back into the exercise thing. But I saw something today that is going to sort of preempt our exercise talk until tomorrow, at least. And this is something that it's not really new, really. There's a device that is sort of slowly creeping up in the forefront. Basically, what it is, there is this new, I don't know what you would call it, a dietary assisting device. Is probably the best way to put it. That it's been on sale, well, not on sale, but it's been sold in Europe for about 4 or 5 years now. Old joke, it died. It's been sold out there for 4 or 5 years, roughly. And they're starting to look at, selling it in the U.S. and then eventually Canada as well. And it's kind of hard to explain. Actually, it's not hard to explain at all, really. It's hard to grasp the concept of it. It doesn't make any sense either. All right, let me just explain what it is. It's called Aspire Assist. And aspiration is, the aspiration I think is just breathing, but with liquidy things. Anyway, what this is, essentially, is it's a surgical procedure that you go through, and they stick a tube through your stomach from the outside, not down your throat or anything. It's sort of a variation on bariatric surgery. And they leave the tube in your stomach. And what it does, it leaves this opening on the outside of your body, what they call a skin port, they say it's about the size of a poker chip. So, that big? So, and essentially what you do is you eat the way that you want to eat, the way that you have been eating, and then after about 20 minutes or half an hour, you connect a bag to the tube through the little port on your skin, and you drain part of your meal out. Essentially what this is, yes, you're not going, well, isn't that just, yes, it's essentially, you're just like, it's machine-assisted bulimia is how I'm looking at this. And this is why I've had such a hard time trying to wrap my mind around this. Because this has been going on in Europe for 4 or 5 years now. They've been selling this. And the people that have it really enjoy it. Which, of course, they will. Aside from how, I'm not a big fan of throwing up anywhere. But if you have, a machine that basically, you connect it, from what I can tell from the demonstration video, you pump water into it, which then fills up your stomach, and then the rest of it sort of drains out. You're sort of flushing. It's a stomach pump, essentially, is what it is. And people are using this to lose weight. Now, the main person that is sort of at the forefront of this, that started doing this, was in Sweden, and he started using the machine, and he lost about 110 pounds, I think they said, over 9 months, which is good. This is where that, there's good and there's bad sort of coming in. Because no matter how I look at this, and I know I'm having a really hard time not being judgmental too, because I'm looking at this going, well, this part of me understands, because we've all been there, where you're willing to try anything to lose the weight. Bariatric surgery, or diet pills, or just liposuction, it was the old one. Just anything, so that you can, get rid of the weight. And it's been really, really difficult for us to sort of change that and say, and really admit, okay, well, if I want to do this, I need to work at it. And we've tried to make it as easy as possible, but it has been difficult. We've had a full year, and some of us have lost more than others, but it's still a struggle. It's still tough to get through it, because we've had to change just so much about our psychology towards food. And I think that's where I'm having the problem with this, because with this, essentially, after you're done eating, about 20 minutes, half an hour, things are starting to, slurry around in there. You drain out 30% of your last meal. So essentially, you're vomiting without actually having to go "Bleh," and throw up. That's all it is. And I think that's why it bothers me, that it really is sort of like a machine-assisted bulimia. Because it's the same thing. Other than the physical act of purging, you're still purging. You're still getting rid of half the food that you've eaten, or 30% of it. And there's the sort of the righteous indignation that I have as well, which I caught myself on because I'm thinking the first thing you think of is that's disgusting. It's extreme, and like you're literally just you might as well just chew it up and spit it back out into the toilet. Back into the toilet. Not that you're eating from your toilet, but you just kind of you know what I mean. Same thing with but. I look at it differently than bulimia, because bulimia we understand there's a deep-seated psychological issue that goes hand in hand with that. And with this, it seems like they're really getting people to embrace it. Instead, I mean, part of what we've done over this year is we need to change how we think. And that's really been sort of the crux of it, is that we need to change how we react to food and how we think about it, and just overall change our entire lifestyle. And with this, it just seems like they're saying you don't need to address why you're fat. Like, we know it's not because we're hungry. We've dealt with that before. We aren't obese because we're hungry all the time. We're obese for a slew of other really mental reasons more than anything else, not physical. Not like mental, but psychologically mental. And this just seems to really be saying to people, you know what, you can eat exactly what you want and eat how you want, and you're still going to be able to lose weight because you just basically drain your stomach after half an hour or so. And it really is like the holy grail of dieting, because we've all thought of that. Oh, if I could still eat whatever I wanted and still lose weight. And half the diets that are out there tell you that you can do that. And it simply isn't true. We know that. But it looks like it is. This is something that people are, really excited about. The people that have this, there's like 2/3 of them, want to keep it in even after they've lost the weight. And why wouldn't you? You can still eat whatever you want. You can eat, the volume that you want. You can eat the type of food that you want, and you're not going to get fat. Now, they're trying to get this so that they're going to start introducing this into the US and Canada. And aside from the medical issue, I'm not a doctor by any stretch of the imagination. Regardless as to what I tell, slightly inebriated people on the bus, I am not a doctor. But there are certain things that just sort of pop into your head. Even just being uneducated, going, well, what about this? Number one is the first thing that I thought of was, what about the psychological issue behind it? Like, you're essentially saying it's okay to eat the way that we eat. It's okay to have the issues that we have. Ignore them. Stay in that cycle. It's just this way you won't end up gaining weight. And for some, I can understand that, yes, it's probably going to save some lives, because there are people that are out there that we know just simply don't have the control. And until a year ago, I was one of them, where I just had no control over it. It's just every excuse in the book I could use, and I would have probably gone after this. But I don't know, it just seems to be dismissive of a lot of the issues that underlie the reasons why we eat. And I think that's dangerous. Number two is, you're losing weight because your calorie intake is lower. You're still eating the same volume of food. Like, if I was still eating the way I was eating a year ago, with all the bad foods that I was eating, but still was able to dump out 25 or 30% of it partway through. Yes, I'm not going to be gaining weight. I'm going to eventually lose weight, but there's a nutritional aspect in there as well. Like, wouldn't you run the risk of being malnourished at some point? Because, the food that we're eating, let's face it, the food that we were eating, I should say, the food that we were eating was not healthy food. We would get, what we needed from it, probably. And maybe that's what I'm thinking of, is that, you'll get enough to survive, but it's not going to be the same. I was always just sort of sick and kind of just not feeling great. Part of that is obviously because of the weight, but I think a lot of that was the food as well. So, there's that issue that you need to deal with. Plus, just the fact that it really does seem to be just, like, I don't know, it's weird. There's something about it that, like, just pouring out the food into a toilet, and this is where that righteous indignation, which I'll get back to, sorry about that, I skipped over that, is that, like, it's wasteful, which sounds weird because, and as soon as I thought that, like, you're literally just chewing it up and going, puh, spitting it back out 20 minutes later. It's a waste. And then you think, well, if you didn't do that, you're just going to shit it out anyway. So what's the difference? You're still spending the same amount of money. You're still eating the same amount of food. You're still getting rid of it. You're still going in the same spot. So what's the difference, I guess? So with that part of it, you can ignore that. But that was the first thing that I thought of, or one of the first things I thought of as well, was like, it's it just seems to get to that point where, like, I can't stop eating enough, so I'm going to eat what I want. I still don't have to exercise any control. I'm just going to throw it out when it's like within 20 minutes after it's done. So there's that part that is just like, that seems really wasteful. But let's face it, eating, 6 or 7 days worth of food every single day like I was doing is wasteful as well. So I can't get up on my high horse and, wag my finger at people because I've done the same thing. And I'm really trying to sort of stay in that mindset of where I was a year ago, that would I have done this? And I was always a little hesitant to try anything like with surgery and stuff like that, but I had thought of bariatric surgery. I had thought of polysporin. No, I was liposuction. I don't know why that came out that way. I had thought about liposuction. I had thought about, just everything. So if this had been something that, was an option, I can see myself entertaining the idea of doing this. Now, the problem is, of course, that you now have this port, as they call it, stuck in your side. And keep on going until you lose the weight that you need to lose. But people are keeping it in because they can still eat whatever they want and they still lose the weight. So part of me, of course, is thinking, I understand where they're coming from. I probably would do the same thing if I could. But then the other half of me is saying they aren't dealing with the actual issue. And that's been a big focus of what we've been doing over the past year, that we don't have to change the way that we eat. We don't have to change what we eat. We don't even have to change the amount that we eat. I just have a little tube, and half an hour after it's done, I just sort of barf it out into a bag without actual heaving and retching and everything else that goes along with it. And that's why I say it's really just sort of like, I don't know, medically sanctioned bulimia. And I can't imagine that it's going to be a good thing. Again, there are always obviously going to be cases where it is going to help people. All right. And if people decide, okay, well, I'm going to do this and keep doing this, then that's entirely up to them. But with us, we had to change how we ate. We had to change what we ate. We had to change how much. We had to change a lot of stuff just to get to a point where we were healthier. And part of that is dealing with some of the psychological issues that come along with that. We've talked a lot about being bullied and, how we're treated by other people, how people see us, how we see ourselves, and all that stuff. And I think talking that out and being able to even just watch someone else that talks about it can be really, really helpful. But with this, it seems like they're saying, well, don't worry about all that. You don't need to worry about all the other issues. You'll get the weight off. That'll solve all the problems, which we know yeah, you're going to feel better, but it's not going to solve everything. But if it's something that people need to get to that boost, to get to a point where, they've lost, say 100 pounds in 9 months, so that they feel better that way, so that they can say, you know what, good, I can start doing other stuff, then yeah, I suppose it's going to be helpful. It's just really hard to sort of wrap your mind around something that really is that thing that everyone's always been searching for, that keep eating what you want, keep eating how you want, but you'll still lose weight. And aside from the gross factor of it, which sort of is minimal, really, for me, because it's just, I don't know. It's the same thing as the Olestra chips that they had a while back, where I think it was just Olestra anyway. It was the oil that your body didn't digest, so as soon as you ate it, it just went pew and shot through you. It's the same thing as people taking laxatives and everything else. It's just, I don't know. I think it's because it's supported by a lot of doctors. On the plus side, of course, there are a lot of doctors, especially in the US and in Canada, that are looking at this going, their knee-jerk reaction is, no, this is very bad. It's something that, a lot of them just sort of had that initial reaction that I had, that like, this doesn't seem right. But it's enough that they're still going to say, you know what, we can't really judge it until we see the results. So looking at, long-term benefits, long-term harm as well. If you took, this has only been going on for a few years in Europe. So if they took a look at that and said, okay, over 5 years, people, I think they did say that the average person loses around 45 pounds, somewhere in there, 43 or 45 or something like that, which is great. Losing weight in any regard is usually pretty good. But if they then look at those people and say, okay, but, they've now started getting like nutritional issues. They're having more long-term effects with infections, or, just because of the surgery itself, there are complications from that. And all the other little things, that you don't really readily see. then I think that that warrants them looking into it as well, and I think that they are. A lot of them are just sort of saying, we need to look at this. It's good enough that we can take a look at it, that it's interesting, that you can say, okay, we have some results. We have results of weight loss. We need to look at every other aspect of this to find out if it's something that we can endorse going forward, because I hate that term, sorry. Especially in Canada, where our health system is not privatized, it's going to be sort of a government sanctioned thing saying, yes, we will pay for it, or no, we won't. So they tend to do a lot of research into stuff. And if it's something that they look at and go, okay, you know what, it's the health benefits outweigh the drawbacks to it. It's going to help with, the costs of the healthcare system. People's health is going to generally improve. It's not really changing any of the other issues, but quite frankly, it's going to save us a shit ton of money, and people in general are going to be healthier because they aren't carrying around all the extra weight. Then fine, they may pay for it. But they don't pay for bariatric surgery right now. It's like a partial thing. They don't pay for a lot of stuff, actually, because and then once you do lose the weight, they say, well, we aren't going to pay for skin removal, like loose skin stuff, because that's considered, I was going to say epileptic. That's not the right word. It's considered elective surgery. So I don't know where they're going to stand on this. But again, this is a very, very, very early stages. This just came out in the past few days, where they're going to be looking at it in North America and saying, okay, we need to take a closer look at the research, because right now all the research is coming from the company that invented this, which is the same guy who invented the Segway. He was part of it as well, which I don't know why there's that connection there, but there are some doctors that are involved with that as well. Just because they're doctors, though, doesn't mean it's necessarily a good thing. We've seen, everyone has a story about a doctor that's a pill pusher. So, I don't know. It seemed like it was really weird, because it's basically turning yourself into a cyborg so that you can keep eating what you're doing, or eating what you're eating, and doing what you're doing without the consequences of it. But I think what really bothers me the most is that there isn't any real underlying issue being dealt with. But of course, it doesn't really do that with bariatric surgery either. You know what? No, that's not entirely true. Bariatric surgery, you do have to change the way that you eat. You can't eat the big, huge binge meals that you normally do. You've got to sort of reevaluate that. You've got to reinvent how you eat that way. The stuff that we're doing, trying to gradually move down to a normal diet and, normal amounts of exercise and things like that, you have to change how you are that way. Even with liposuction, after that, like once you get that sort of boost going, then you need to change again. And maybe that's sort of what they're looking at, is that once people get that weight loss down, then they're going to want to be more healthy. Right now, though, they're looking at anywhere between 2/3 and 70% of the people that have it want to keep it in. That, to me, says, well, they're still just sort of eating the way that they're eating. And I know part of me is also saying, well, who the fuck cares? It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect you at all, how people eat and things like that. It's just, in my head, this is what I'm thinking, is that it's, it doesn't deal with anything. It's basically just saying, it's essentially a more mechanical version of, here's that magic pill that we've all been looking for years and years and years. Eat whatever you want, and you're going to be fine. And aside from just being kind of from dumping stuff out half an hour after eating, right now, I don't know enough about it to condemn it. And I don't know really enough about it to support it. But I'm leaning more towards condemning it right now, just because it's new and it's weird and it's kind of, I don't like change. And I don't want to get to that point where it's like, I don't agree with it because it's new and different. But that's the sort of the first initial reaction that I had was, this is really just, that's the first thing I thought of, was it's bulimia. And I can imagine that, although I'm hoping that they would say, well, this is, there's going to be sort of an upper limit to the weight, or a lower limit, I should say, to the weight that people need to be before they actually install this. I can imagine there are going to be a few, doctors that are a little less scrupulous and will certainly put this in with someone, and, just people that don't need it. Especially in the States, I would imagine, because everything's just sort of paid for. If you have the money, you can do whatever you want. So it's just, I don't know. It's a little weird. So I'm not going to put any links down below because I don't want to really support it. I mean, you can go and you can Google this stuff. It's all over the place. And the sites that I've seen go as far back as 2013. So it's been around for a while. It was something that was really weird, and where they're starting to look at it now here, it just kind of went, eh. And in keeping with the whole changing how we're eating and things like that, They do say that it does change how you eat when you're using it, because you have to eat, you have to chew thoroughly and drink more water. It's not exactly the same as, the fundamental changes that we've made over the past year. But again, every time I start swinging more towards one way, I say this is horrible and they shouldn't be doing this, and this, sanctioning bulimia and everything else, then immediately I sort of go back and go, you know what? I probably would have done this a year ago. I understand that you get to that point where you'll try anything. And, there's the old joke is like, well, did you try diet and exercise? Well, no, but neither did I. And people don't understand. It's not as easy as just going, well, I'm going to eat less and I'm going to start exercising. It doesn't work that way. But I don't think that this is something that, it might be good to get people over that initial hump and they start losing weight quickly and then they feel better and then they want to be healthier. Then if that's the case, if that's what they find with all the people that have been using, or not all of them, but if, a large number of people have been doing this, then great. But if they find that the majority of people haven't changed their eating habits, they haven't changed, their lifestyle at all, then I can't imagine the government saying, well, we're still going to, well, you know what? You never know. They might just say, well, we're still going to support it because it's still going to cost us less money for our healthcare system. And that's I guess the weird part, that it's, I don't know. I don't know whether to say it's a good thing or bad thing. My initial reaction is to say that it's a bad thing. But then I look at it another way and think, it could be good. Even if people are still dealing with all the same shit that they're dealing with now, and they're 50 pounds lighter. Nothing else has changed, but they're 50 pounds lighter. They're still eating the way they want to eat. They're still doing what they want to do. They still are going to have the same health issues and everything. But if they're 50 pounds lighter, they're still healthier than they would be otherwise. So, I don't know. I can't make a decision like this. So it's really weird, just sort of, when you see something like this that jumps out at you and going, oh, this is horrible. And you're like, well, maybe not horrible. Might be good. It'd be very good if this happened. And then you think, no, because it's very bad over here. I don't know. All over the place with this one. So I don't really have a set opinion at this point. It's just that, and this is still very, very brand new. I saw this an hour ago. But it's just, I don't know. There's that initial reaction that I just sort of wanted to go and get out. But I don't know what they're going to do with it. I'm going to keep an eye on it, though, just for curiosity's sake, to see where it goes and to see what the research is going to show them, and see if they look at it and say, you know what, it's beneficial. Psychologically, it's very damaging, or psychologically, it doesn't deal with any of the shit. But physically, if it's a benefit, then why not? And then we can deal with our baggage at a later date, I suppose. It'd be the same thing as liposuction, I suppose, just sort of short-term stuff. Same thing with bariatric surgery. That's a little slower than liposuction, but you do have to sort of, again, there's that change that goes along with it. This doesn't require any change at all, other than obviously every half hour after eating, you have to go and dump out your barf bag. It doesn't stay attached to you. You actually attach it, and then you push water into it by the looks of things. You pour water into it, and then you just sort of unscrew that, and then the extra water pushes out a lot of the extra food. It really is essentially bulimia, but with, I don't know, a machine to assist you. It's really weird. Who would have thunk it that science fiction stuff would take a turn this way? That this is what we decide. That's a good idea. Can we attach that to our stomach and just sort of purge out that way, so that you don't have to have all the drawbacks, like your hair falling out and your teeth falling out and the bad breath and all the other horrible stuff that goes along with bulimia. But and I'm not trying to make light of bulimia, obviously, so fuck off if you think I am. But I see this as another form of that. And it's the same way of, people taking laxatives and everything else. And yes, I know it doesn't affect me at all, but I don't know, that's the vibe I'm getting from it, that it's this weird alternate form of bulimia that I think will appeal to a lot of people. It certainly would have appealed to me a year ago. And even now you look at it and you think, that I could still eat whatever I wanted. There's still that little glimmer in there that goes, this is really close to eat whatever you want and still lose weight. You don't have to change your lifestyle. You don't have to change your eating habits. You don't have to change anything. You just have to, every now and then, when you're close to a toilet, dump out half the shit that you ate. So, I don't know. it's really weird running into something like this and not being able to say, well, I looked through all the information, I've looked at all the research that they're doing, and here's my opinion on it. Is a little weird because I haven't really looked at a lot of it, because the stuff that's out there really is sort of put forward by the company that made it. So you just sort of take that with a grain of salt. And any of the stuff that I would look at to say, well, these are the studies that are showing, they're sort of going every which way, and there's nothing that I can sort of grasp onto concretely. There might be later on. So if there is, I will keep people updated. But it was interesting to take a look at it. And part of me understands why people would want this. And if I'm to be honest, part of me still would think I could go back to eating my nachos and my ribs and all my burritos and my pizza every day and everything else, and I could still be losing weight. So that appeal is still there. It's a rough thing to get rid of, that whole eat whatever you want and still lose weight feeling. It's very, very tempting. But so I do understand why people would do this. But then logically in my head, I'm thinking, we've worked really, maybe that's part of it, that we've worked really, really, really hard to get where we are. We've tried to make it as easy as we can, but it's been a long road. We've spent an entire year and not losing a shit ton of weight like, some people have. We haven't been like driving it so that we're losing 4 and 5 pounds a week. We're keeping it very, very slow. We're keeping the weight loss very, very low, but it's consistent, and that's good. But a lot of the stuff that we've done has been just to change, really fundamentally how we are. And I think that's been a big help as well. So when I see something like this, it's just like, eh. And then if I'm to be honest, I have to ask myself, is part of this the jealousy thing too, thinking you could lose more weight than I do and you get to eat whatever you want? Could be that too. I don't think it is, but I have to entertain that idea because obviously I thought of it. So anyway, I could sit here for another half hour probably. Close to half an hour. Sorry, folks. But you can go up and take a look at stuff if you want. I'm not going to put any links down below just because I don't want to sanction it or anything. It's more of a curiosity at this point right now and a bit of a worry as well. But again, that might just be because it's new and unknown. So we need to be sensible about... Try that once more. We need to be sensible about this stuff. And until we have all the information, we can't really make a good judgment call on it. So this is just the initial knee-jerk reaction that I've had. And as you can see, it's all over the place. But I'm going to keep an eye on it and see what happens and see where things go. And who knows, my opinion might change. Or I might even just pick an opinion. That might be good too. So, but anyway, until then, I'm going to leave this video here because otherwise I'll go on for another half hour going back and forth and not knowing exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. So, I'll leave it. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. And in the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.